Hello and warm welcome to everyone joining us today. I am Ayush, Marketing Coordinator at CyberKnight, and I'll be your host for this webinar, Turning Privacy Compliance into Security Advantage, Implementing Data Privacy Laws in Meta Release. Today, we'll be exploring how organizations across the Meta can navigate evolving data privacy regulations, including privacy and data protection laws across Meta. We'll also see Ardent Privacy TurtleShield platform helps enterprises strengthen privacy, security, and compliance while reducing cost and risk. Before we get started, here are few quick housekeeping notes. Got questions? Pop them into Q&A box anytime. Our experts love a good challenge. We'll tackle as many as we can during the session and follow up on the rest afterwards. We are together for about an hour, ending with a dedicated Q&A where you can engage directly with our amazing speakers. Over to you, Sandeep.
Samrin, you're mute.
Thank you so much, Ayush, for the brief introduction. I really appreciate that. Hello, everybody. Welcome on board. It's a great pleasure to have you. Let me welcome you to our webinar, Turning Privacy Compliance into Security Advantage. It is very important in today's world, especially when we are into the AI-driven world. Let me start by introducing our esteemed guest of honor, Mr. Samir Ahiro, who is the founder and CEO of Ardent Privacy and an experienced security leader who brings with 25 years of experience in building effective enterprise security and privacy programs across different verticals in the region. Prior to founding Ardent, this is what I would really like to emphasize on. He has worked with enterprise organizations such as Symantec, Deloitte, Lockheed Martin, implementing engineering and auditing security and putting the data privacy programs in place. So, Samir, I really want to ask you, what is your inspiration to start with Ardent, and how is that Ardent gonna be, completely turning privacy compliance into the security advantage for our listeners and the participants out here? It would be great if you could just give us a brief intro
Yeah,
about it.
hey, Samrin and CyberKnight. Oh, what a pleasure, right? Really excited, especially for this webinar, and not just webinar, but the region, right? I was just there last month, right? Going across um, the region and talking to various partners and customer, and super excited how basically our data privacy and AI discussions are coming up. I always start this conversation with my favorite concept. What's the difference between security and privacy? And I think it's still not understood. So I'll tell you a couple of years, or actually we do been had the booth at the RSA in San Francisco, and I'll ask this question to everyone at the booth. Hey, what is difference between security and privacy? And I'll get those stares, right? Oh, privacy is about compliance, and what is security about? So let me start my conversation with that. So security and privacy are not same things, right? They are quite assumed all the time. So I take a great analogy when I actually do that, and it makes the job everybody simple, and that actually basically sets the foundation for the entire discussion why you need privacy and why you need security and how they are different. So security, say for example, if you have a home, right? That home, you have windows, you have doors, you have collapsible doors, you have security guards, right? You may have fences. That's security. So what is privacy? Privacy is you enter the home, your curtain, that curtain is your privacy, right? You want to open it when you want outsiders to see, when you want sunlight to come in, right? But you close it when you don't want others to see. So it's more about transparency, right? It's more about responsibly using the data which is actually you already have access to overall. So absolutely excited to be here, Samrin, and I know with Ashley. So happy to basically, or I would say privileged to be with Ashley here talking about the whole concepts as well as our TurtleShield platform here. Yeah, Samrin, back to you.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much. For the everyone who have not known me yet, I just started and you might be wondering who is this person. Let me introduce myself. I've just kept my introduction for the second because I didn't want to take, Samir's thunder out there. And I just wanted to put it on second introductory. My name is Sabreen Banu. I'm the business unit head and I'm the data security business unit is something that I manage in the CyberKnight. Ardent is one of the data privacy solution that I have in my portfolio. And today we will be walking through across this whole solution with our technology expert, one of the most charming person that I have on board today, whose name is Ashley, who comes with 35 plus years of experience, who is our senior solution consultant for the region. Now, he's just not the senior solution consultant. That would be too less for me to talk about him. He's having held or wearing a hat of a CISO, CTO, and CIO roles in multiple organizations. And he has implemented SAMA, the cybersecurity framework, ISO 27001, the NCA, DCC, and the PDPL, and many, many others, which he will be talking about his journey as he will be walking through the product TurtleShield and all the other modules that he will be discussing in future. He's a guest speaker at numerous roundtables, so he's a very familiar face for everyone in KSA. But for the others who don't know, now you know him. Over to you, Ashley.
Well, thank you very much, Samarine. That's a very interesting biographical information. Thank you for this. Yes, in terms of data security, data privacy, it is up there now on the radar because of the frameworks in Saudi and in other parts of the Middle East. Obviously, with the assistance of Samir, we'll discuss all these areas and how the Ardent platform can enforce compliance within all these areas. We'll start with this slide here, and I think, Samir, if you could just quickly explain this one in terms of...
Can you go back, Ashley? I'll do an introduction slide. I think we didn't do that.
Sorry, I was a bit too quick there. My apologies. Yeah, if you could just quickly go through and explain in terms of the Ardent mission, and then we'll discuss the 6 main, in terms of areas to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we are on a mission to basically help enterprises implement meaningful. And when we say meaningful, we really mean it. Okay. Meaningful security and privacy program, which protects them and implement privacy, building trust and protecting data assets in really a long term. So we have a patented tech basically to discover, identify, map, inventory, your personal sensitive or the business critical data, which really matters to you. Along with that, we do have the whole platform and which we'll go through, which handles your end-to-end data privacy and AI governance management. The core foundation of that is data bill of materials, and we'll get to it really quick. But some of the key features here are you have a rapid and accurate visibility of your data assets, your compliance automated. Eventually, that turns into your cost reduction, of course, saving cost on compliance and also making it possible. And when we talk about unified teams, we work across your team because this project cannot be done by one team, right? Data is actually at the DNA of entire organization, and various stakeholders are involved. Yeah, back to you, Ashley.
Again, thank you for that, Sammy. And obviously, all these areas are covered in today's discussions, as well as the frameworks as well. However, the next slide's interesting because this is obviously the 6 steps of implementation of all the areas, the PIA, the assessments. And obviously, if you can just briefly tell the audience how this implements with your technology.
Yeah. So as far as cybersecurity goes, people do have, right? They're familiar with NIST or SAMA or local frameworks, right? Privacy is still, right? A lot of people. So what we did was we created a 6-step plan across various geographies, how people can implement privacy in 6 steps, right? Overall, and I'll just briefly walk you through, and I think you can go in detail one by one. So first thing is, you got to do your gap assessment, risk assessment. In privacy language, it's called privacy impact assessment, data protection impact assessment, right? And along with that, a lot of risk assessments like transfer impact assessment if you have a cross-border data transfer. So step number one is basically do your PIs, get that done. Number two, know what data you have, right? Discover and identify PII, sensitive and personal data, what we call data bill of materials, right? So you must have heard of terminology SBOM, and we'll talk more about that and how that's important. So you map your entire personal data across the organization. So we have a discovery platform, which I earlier patented platform I talked about. um, do that. That's step number two. Step number three, you implement the data principal rights or data subject rights, because if I'm Samir or Samreen or Ashley, now with all these privacy regulations, organization need to make the the right to delete, right to know, those kind of rights available. And the core foundation of that is, number one, you need to enable that from front end, which is create the entire workflow, and on the back end you should have ability to discover and find where Ashley or Samir's or Jondo's data is within your organization. And that's what we do with discovery. The next is consent. Right, very important part. One of the principle within privacy is consent management. Every piece of data you collect from the personal, there has to be a consent, right? You can't just collect and we'll deal later with it overall. And that's being right. And that entire consent management system. So you need to basically store the consent, collect the consent, store the consent, and basically have ability to enable revoking the consent. That's consent management. Next is data minimization. You need to enforce retention policies and storage limitation. What exactly you can collect and what you cannot, depending on the regulation. Is it right to the purpose of collection? That's your enforced storage limitation requirements. And last but not the least, what if data breach happens, right? So you need to be ready for post data breach. Understand this is post data breach management, right? So what privacy and legal teams need to do once data breach actually happens, right? So you need to tell users, you need to basically notify authorities, and this is how we basically put a 6 steps approach, which is actually applicable across the regional regulations. So we talk about the Qatar, KSA, Dubai, DFL, DIFC, all the regulations, but these are the 6 steps which will actually walk you through that fundamental way to implement the privacy within your organization. Back to you, Ashley.
Well, thank you for that. It was a very detailed explanation. Obviously, I will now discuss each one of those in turn now, and then obviously we'll have an interaction on this information. Obviously, we'll start here with the data bill of materials. Now, as we've said, Samir and myself have been in this field, cybersecurity, IT, data security, for like many years. I have seen many failures of data management because this part isn't completed first. It sounds very grand, data bill of materials, but basically what it's doing is it's to identify and it's to list the information. The PDPL actually mandates this, as do other the data frameworks as well. However, it isn't just the data, it's also a cybersecurity initiative as well, because I have seen over the years in Saudi and in the UK where the data is all over the place. People have no idea where it is, who owns the data. This is a huge issue. Where the data is stored. I have seen examples of having files outside in the corridor. Plenty of those. That's a failure. So this DBOM here is a way to set like a bedrock, effectively, and it's the where it starts from. And as I said, the DBOM includes the in terms of your ownership, who is responsible for this information. It can't be an excuse. It isn't anything to do with me. It's the CRO. No, you have to know who actually owns this. Who is the custodian? You have to know about the sharing history. Who has been accessing this information? The collection purpose, why the data was gathered. The usage of the data. So is it being, in terms of its current processing and utilization? Where is the data stored, data location? And also the data collection method. How was the data obtained? It all sounds a lot of work. However, it's necessary because the benefits of the DBOM is it involves compliance with your privacy laws, your PDPL, your GDPR, etc. It gives enhanced data transparency because it creates a very clear, understandable record of the data flows, which increases the trust and accountability, which is very important. It also enables improvement in terms of data management, because it does simplify in terms of those processes of finding and in fact managing this information. It makes the data discovery more streamlined because you're not looking in different areas. And the final one, of course, it increases the data security. And to me, I have said it on record, and I'll say it again, and whether somebody actually agrees on this, I see in terms of this data privacy, with the DBOM as the same as the business impact analysis in terms of the BCM. It's the starting block. That's how I see it. Now, okay, you can argue this isn't business continuity, but I'm looking in terms of the effect of this particular part of it. It's the start where, in fact, the BIA is the start of the business continuity, the business impact analysis. This is the start of the journey here, your DBOM. Over to you, Samir, in terms of how Ardent can obviously and have an enforcement.
And thank you, Ashley, for basically explaining the whole DBOM. So I think data supply chain, right? I think software supply chain, after those bunch of hacks we got, we've been talking enough, right, about software supply chain and how that can basically haunt us. You're talking about from state nation to pretty much everything. But if you see really, right, what's the currency of data breach or any kind of data thefts, right? It's data, right? It's not software or anything else, right? So data supply chain is even, I see, more important than software supply chain because nobody is there to hack software. Okay, they are hack basically software to get to some data, and that data we need to have exactly. If we don't know what data we have, how will we protect that data? And that's how the whole webinar what we are basically, that how we can do, right? The privacy is the absolute reason to do it, and that can turn into your security advantage as well, right? Because it also acts you as a DSPM, data security posture management, because eventually that. So if you search DBOM, and we've been not only fan, we are inventor of this concept, right? If you search data bill of material, you'll find my article a couple of actually 3 years ago in terms of, and super duper, it's a foundation of your data privacy and now AI governance program, because whatever the results, right, all your AI, right, all AI security and privacy risks, they're gonna come out of what data you feed to them. So absolutely important concepts, and that's the core foundation of our solution, that get accurate data bill of materials for your privacy program.
Excellent. Thank you, Samir. Have we any questions from the audience for this? Anybody wants to ask anything at this stage?
Yeah, I think we can just type it in, right? If somebody has, and we can go along.
Yes, absolutely. If you've got anything, yeah, please just fill it in. Otherwise, we'll continue on this one. Privacy, in terms of privacy automation, obviously, this is where your data discovery, etc., all of this. Obviously, this allows for like a single framework. You are no longer compelled to have like one framework. Obviously, this shows quite clearly within the solution as well, and Sammy will explain more, where in terms of the automation aspect, the days of doing things in Excel for this sort of subject are simply not acceptable anymore. And because the regulator simply won't accept it, because they expect companies to invest in a platform or a solution, because handing over Excel spreadsheets or word-written report or type reports, well, they're open to compromise. Here, having it on this automated structure, enables in terms of reduce of the risks, because people have a tendency to overinflate where the data management is. If everything is green in an Excel spreadsheet, everything's 100%, that raises alarm bells as well with the regulator, because they want to see where you are, etc. So here you've got your dashboarding. Obviously, it shows you the assessment times. It's compliant for specific areas as well. It's clean, and you can tell the regulator immediately where you are. There's no going through emails or files or looking for this and that. It shows you straight away, and therefore you are then that in terms of like head of the curve, and in the eyes of the regulator, you are being very, in fact, proactive. Again, Samir, do you want to perhaps elaborate further on this, or?
Absolutely. So the way I call, right, this module, right, assessment manager, is it's all about single system of record, right? So you do need that basically because the privacy assessments and yearly, right, or even if you have a new project, that becomes kind of chore, right, within your organization. How long? So you have big four or little six or some consultants doing engagement and going off, maybe in some cases. You need to have something you can rely on in terms of what, and also actually do basically get the dashboards for your management or also for your business owners. One of the key or the new features I want to actually very proud to showcase there. We recently introduced common control framework. Absolutely important, because if you see one of the challenge in doing these all assessments, again, compliance is a chore. Nobody wants to do it, right? They want to do it because it is kind of mandatory. So we got to make it simple, right? Serve the purpose, but make it simple. So what common control framework does is if you have multiple standards, say for example, you are in across the region, right? You have one Qatar PDPPL, you have KSA PDPL, and you have Dubai one in GDPR maybe, right? Overall, what you can do is you don't have to repetitively answer the same questions, right? Or you will have those answers pre-populated in your assessment mix, the business owner's job. Super easy. We do have a global question library if you want a one big standard from various things, because various kind of compliance regulations or standards, you can actually pick and choose what, right? And you can create your own. Having said that, our module, right, how it's different and rest of the basically other competition, it's completely, you can build your own standards, you can build your own dashboard, what we call a no code platform to do your PIs. Technically, you can do all your risk assessment. No need to basically deal with spreadsheets or any kind of stuff, any kind of risk assessment, even security. But of course, for privacy, we have a great content available. AI governance, latest and greatest. If you talk about EU AI Act or everything, lot of content and lot of good stuff there to basically assess your organization and get those dashboards out for your regulator or management.
Excellent, Samir. Thank you very much. Has anybody got any questions on this? Are we good to go on the next section? Yeah. Okay. Data discovery. Now, this here is where obviously you need the platform here, because the data discovery, I've been in companies which have been 10, 12, 15 years old. The data is held on like laptops. It's held in silos. It's held on storage somewhere in the world. I don't know. This part is basically the meat of the coconut, I call it, because this is where you identify, you explore, you analyze those various sources, because this can lead obviously to better like decision making. I have seen, and no doubt Samir as well, in the C-suite, where decisions are not always made correctly because the information isn't there or they can't find it. So then they assume. So then we assume it's going to be okay for the next 5 years, when somewhere in some data store there's a file that says please, for the next 5 years, there's going to be an issue here in terms of financials, but people aren't aware of that. They keep things to themselves. So here, this part of it, it is crucial. It is like I said, without this, forget anything else, because this is where you have to have an automated solution. You can't manually actually do this. It's impossible. And if you tell the regulator, yes, Mr. Regulator, I can do it manually, they won't believe, in fact, anything you say, because it isn't credible. Obviously, the main part of data discovery, it's involving the data structures, looking at them. It's looking for hidden connections, trends, etc. It's insight generation. That sounds quite grand, but basically it's to transform the vast amounts of data into an understandable insight, which allows strategic decisions and to optimize operations. It's no good just having terabytes of information if it doesn't actually explain anything. It's like when you give somebody like a report of 5,000 pages, but it isn't showing anything. It's just like words. Obviously, it's also for data security and in terms of governance. And again, the regulations, PDPL, GDPR, CCP, all of these, to ensure that the data is like regulated. One area where people seem to get confused by is structured data and unstructured data. People will say, well, data is data. No, it isn't. They are not the same, unstructured data and structured data. Your structured data is your databases, because it's in tables, it's in like third form normalization. In some companies, maybe in like fifth form normalization. In terms of your unstructured data, well, that's what I call the operational, it's all over the place type data, your emails, your text files, your Word documents, your Excel spreadsheets with like names which don't mean anything. Like document 1, well, what does that tell you? Does it tell you anything? Excel spreadsheet, like file 1, what's that telling me? So in terms of why it matters, and again, it comes back to this, what I mentioned earlier, why do we need like a D-bomb? Why do we need data discovery? Because it assists with, obviously, the business strategies. It provides deeper insight into the customers, into market trending. It improves efficiency, because it does automate the data analysis. How many times have teams been going around looking for information? Oh, I can't find this report. I can't find this spreadsheet. I remember I saved it 6 years ago on like a desktop. Oh, I think it's gone now. That's no good. It does assist with risk management, because it does identify, and again, this ties in with cyber risk management and your data risk management. It does look for data security vulnerabilities. It does look for potential in terms of the privacy risks, and also anything which is non-compliant data usage. And finally, in terms of all of this, it's like adaptable, because it enables your business, your organization, to respond quickly to market changes. You're no longer having to think, oh, that spreadsheet from a couple of years ago doesn't show very much, and it doesn't show the way that we're going. Here, it can be done like in real time. Personally, I think this part here, although the D-bomb, as I said earlier, and somebody was saying, is the main bedrock, in terms of criticality, this is my own opinion. This isn't, I'm getting into like a debate about who thinks better what, but however, I think the data discovery is the first part of this, because without this, nothing else will in fact work. I don't know what your views on that, Samir.
Yep. So I often call, and actually that can resonate with the region so much, is oil drilling approach to data discovery, right? So it's not a small task, right? And a lot of security, privacy, or even compliance team don't even basically dare to get into it, because it's a lot, right? We're talking about, so one of the large bank, right? Asia's, I would say top 10 bank we are working with, almost 150 stakeholders, overall different application owners, business owners, all that. But one of the thing, right, approach, what we call oil drilling approach to the data discovery. So we do basically use AI and machine learning to get a lot of insights, right, overall from the metadata layer. So you don't have to do, or rather you get a full, or rather a lot of idea, and that's what the whole patent is all about. It makes your data discovery so simple, whatever you need to do, because here your role, right, within the privacy era, it's not about only data governance, right? It's about knowing that data, inventorying that data, and that's step number one overall. So it's super fast, what I call supersonic. You don't have to basically churn hours and hours. And as you said, Ashley, same thing with the unstructured data, absolutely highly divided or dispersed data within the organization. So I think a lot of teams or a lot of places, right, we give up that, hey, this cannot be done, right? You're talking about the BIA and those kind of earlier conversation, because continuity was the the new concept at the time. But we make this possible, right, with basically simplifying it and making it available for everyone as a foundation of solution.
That's correct. You just said something very interesting there about, and I've said it as well. Companies used to say, "Oh, there's too much work. It's too many resources. Haven't got the time." This was exactly the same issue that I faced when I was CISO in terms of the SAMA CSF and the NCA. It's too much hard work. There's too much to do. Well, these frameworks, they're not my frameworks. They're not SAMIA frameworks. They're not Tamarine's frameworks. These are government frameworks, and you have to comply with them. There are no exceptions. I used to use the terminology for TINA. There is no alternative. It's not a person, it's a methodology that I use, TINA. Same with here. The SAMA CSF was TINA, NCA was TINA. The NCA DCC is TINA. This is TINA as well. There is no alternative. And again, it's mandatory. And the PDPL here in Saudi, it came out in 2023. It's enforced in September 2024. Companies must comply, and there are no exceptions to this or excuses. Any questions on that one?
Yeah, we'll take the questions at the last, right, Ashley?
Okay,
There are
okay. This one, the data subject access requests. Again, it sounds this sounds complicated. But basically, it's just a way to allow, it gives like legal entitlements that give the individual control over their own information. Everybody's had websites where, can we call you on this number or email, etc. Are we able to provide this to other information when you tick on in terms of the acceptance, etc. Well, here, and again, Sammy will explain more within the platform. This, again, you can't do it manually, because again, you have to do it, you have to enforce this. So in terms of this, data subject rights, it does address those privacy challenges. And obviously, in terms of the key rights, well, that includes the right to be informed, the right to access, the right to rectification, correction, or correct the information, the right to, in terms of erasure, the right to restrict the processing, etc. So there's quite a varied areas on this. And again, these are part of the common data subject rights. Again, an easy example is in terms of your credit record. If you can't get a credit card, and you know that you've kept all your bills up to date, all your payments are on time, you've never been in like default, and you are rejected time and time again. This happens in the UK frequently. Because obviously here in Saudi we have the ID system, in the UK that we don't. So people just like move around. There's no control there. So you can find that when you've got like a house or where you're staying, a person before you could have like racked up like millions of pounds of debt, but yet you're living there. So effectively it becomes under your like name. So you have to inform the credit reference agencies, Equifax, etc., to say, look, this is incorrect. Take my name off it, because I'm getting rejected for all of this. And this has happened time and again in the UK. Obviously, in terms of, so how do you exercise these rights? Again, it's all well and good saying data subject access requests, but how do we exercise those? And again, you request a submission because you have to make a form-like request, as I've explained about the reference agency. It's verification. The organizations must verify the identity of the person making that request. There's a real danger here that people can call themselves anything, but unless they're verified, it doesn't count for anything. It's response times. Time is key, it's essential. It's not good enough to wait 6 weeks, 8 weeks, not acceptable. You need strict SLAs on this, and there's time frames to respond to this. And again, transparency, and it's a format of this. Responses should be provided in a clear, simple, accessible format. People do not want to see E equals MC squared type literature. It doesn't account for anything. People aren't interested in that. It's be simple, clear, transparent. And again, over to Samir, who will explain like is wonderful in terms of this part of the platform.
Yeah, so just there, I think you covered it pretty well, Ashley. So definitely there has to be a robotic automation, right? Or RPA-based automation for this entire, because say, for example, you may get tons of this kind of request, and how do you handle that? Verifiable request is absolutely important, which we support. So you do KYC verification either with OTP or you do that with one of those external platforms. What it gives you is eventually it needs to be dealt by your privacy or legal team, right? On day-to-day basis. And you don't have to go to other platforms. It's a single pane of glass where you can actually do this request and also keep a record. Again, it's a system of record from the regulatory aspect of it, where you can find everything at one place, and it ties back to your data discovery as well, because eventually when you do right to know request or maybe right to delete, and you can you need to actually find and search, do those queries and search through that data for particular individual or business, and find that data and ship it back to them, right? Depending on that. So it does work like if you are familiar with either right to information or FOIA, I compare with Freedom of Information Act, kind of the similar to that, but the platform covers it all.
And again, it's interesting what you said as well, Samir. All of this is interlinked. It's not in silos. Data discovery, your DSAR, all of this is linked together. And I think people don't get that sometimes. They think, oh, it's just like one area, and it isn't. It's like a mesh.
Absolutely.
Consent management. This is, again, you need a solution for this. You can't just manually do this. And you've seen this on plenty of these websites where can we, have we got consent to take your information, name, phone number, etc. You have to, this has to be a solution. Obviously, the consent management part is that process. Again, it's a process. All this is like process driven. Again, it's similar to cybersecurity where it's process driven. It isn't technology driving it. It's the processes behind that. So here, in terms of consent management, it's the process of obtaining, recording, it's management, the user's permission to collect that information. It also involves a clear disclosure of data practices, which allows the user to provide or withdraw the consent. And that's why you need a consent management solution here. In terms of the key aspects of this, and in terms of the key areas, obviously the first one is to obtain that consent. The business must explain why it's being collected. You can't just put on the website, "Oh, just please fill in the form." That'll tell you anything. Why it's being collected and how it will be, in fact, used. and then you obtain that explicit permission. Because if you just say on the website, we're taking your information, your name and your address, and that's it, and then the company decides to share that with other organizations which you don't want to be involved with, then actually, in fact, breaking the law. So they have to be very, very explicit here. Obviously, another aspect of this is to store and to document that consent. They have to be securely stored, not on bits of paper or an Excel spreadsheet. Again, a platform such as Ardent, this is what it's for. It's managing those preferences and also to allow the choices, including opting in, opting out, etc. You also have a technical integration. This is more for integrating like databases underneath, because all these systems, all these like websites are like databases. So you have to integrate into there, whether it be SQL, Oracle, etc. And again, compliance with regulations. This is the main part. If any company or if any team says, we're not doing it, it's too much hard work, you simply come out with like one word, compliance. It has to be done. There are no exceptions to this, because the penalties, and especially in Saudi Arabia, are very severe in terms of data mismanagement. So that's basically in like a nutshell. Again, when I was at the I almost said the company there. When I was at the previous financial company as CISO, we had to enforce this because of the SAMA regulations as well. So it has to be done. Samir, if you can give us your take on this and how your...
Yeah, so again, right, I'm gonna basically take the concept of the consent. I think most of the crowd, or rather most of us, basically take that cookie consent management is the consent, which is not absolutely. Cookie only covers probably 1%, right? So what we call this solution as a unified consent management, right? So what you're doing, and cookie is probably 1 to 2% of that entire. When you take cookie, that's just a browser base, right? It does not have even any identifier assigned to it. So for example, you're a bank, you're an insurance company or retail, whatever the form collection data you're taking, you need to have a basically consent collection, and that collection has to be well understood. And that's in the modern terms, it's called nutrition label. That's what we excel in compared to other platforms overall. So nutrition label type. So like you have your food items, or like the food jars and containers, what everything contains. So that kind of a nutrition label consents we have, so people know, right? And there is basically a sub-layering. Now, the biggest challenge, or rather and actually I would like to mention that all these solutions are basically super or hyper local, on-prem, available in both on-prem or local cloud, depending on how you want to implement it, and not just like one single basically a SaaS service for entire, because privacy does come with data localization, and every country, more and more countries actually are enforcing data, especially the financial data, the personal data, national interest data, to be localized overall. So that actually applies to even earlier modules. We talk about discovery, PA, and all that. So coming back to the consent, it is available locally. And other thing is this unified consent management in the particular language which user understands, right? Overall. Now, this is also can be a fundamental, not fundamental, but quite a change within your organizational application. The way we do it is you have API, which can be basically called in from the website or application you have, or mobile app, IoT, whatever platform is out there. And then you have a centralized basically reporting of all those concepts from regular or regulator standpoint. So simple, concise nutrition label. It not only basically complies with your local standard or regulation, but also gives a really good feel to your users, right? That you've been transparent with what data is being collected and how are you using it, and that's absolutely important in this whole data hungry world.
Excellent, very informative. Thank you, Samir. The data minimization, again, sounds very technical. but as it says in the statement, it's to reduce the data and just to focus on the enterprise centric. Basically, again, with companies that I've worked in and some here as well, they have terabytes of information. Not all of it is valid anymore because of like historical like needs. So therefore, by doing it this way, just focusing on in terms of like the relevant information sort of thing. It's again, it's to get rid of, or it isn't like to delete anything. It's just to remove out of the cake anything which is like described like non-essential data, because you'll collect information about people, whatever, and it'll have street name, address, the eye colour, the jumper colour, what's the favourite food. Well, some of these fields are not really necessary. Somebody who likes falafel, it doesn't matter. It's not irrelevant, with respect, because it's been collected because that's over time. So what the data minimization does is it shrinks it down effectively and says, right, so what is the core area then? Name, phone number, etc. Again, this is important here because it reduces privacy risks. Because by collecting less data, there are fewer opportunities for personal information to be compromised. It does enhance security because there's less data to protect, because you're not collecting terabytes like nonsense. Again, ensures legal compliance, because again, the data minimization principles are there inside the PDPL and in the other data frameworks as well. Yes, it improves efficiency, obviously, because it means lower storage costs. You're not storing terabytes and petabytes of information that won't ever be, in fact, used again. In terms of the implementation of this, well, again, you need a platform, a tool. To do it manually is just not possible because the sheer scale of it. And you have to ensure that for a particular subject like this, for data minimization, you have to define a clear, in terms of purpose. It has to, in terms of what is actually being collected. You only collect what's necessary. You limit the data retention for as long as and it is needed. In some frameworks, in SAMA for the financial institution, you can't get rid of anything. In others, it's like 7 years, 10 years, 5 years. And also, it allows you to implement your data governance, because then you can see access control, data sharing agreements to support this process. Again, it's a process. Again, your views on this, Samir, in terms of the platform?
Yeah, so I think data minimization is a very important control. Actually, the Maryland state law has specific requirements going into a place. One of the GDPR also has its basically focus. It is actually a good security control as well, right? Why to store data which is not required for the organization, or even duplicate copies of certain data? What's the retention requirement? Because it is a liability, right? Having more data is a liability. So absolutely important, and not just privacy. Privacy is absolutely the key requirement or compliance we are talking about, but also from your security control side. I don't think we as security professionals take that very basically into consideration when protecting data, right? Less data you have, less to protect, right? As simple as that overall. But yeah, thank you. I think you covered it pretty well.
Okay, that's me. Thank you. That was an interesting thing as well about having duplicate copies. I have seen this where people have 10 copies of a spreadsheet which has been shared around the entire organization. It's the same information, but why are you sharing it around 10 times? Again, that is like a liability. So with this process, again, it's process driven with the technology stack as well, enables that you can actually get the compliance for this. Your data breach management, data breach notification. Obviously, you've heard of, there's been stories in the UK with like Marks and Spencer. There's been like data leakage there, data breaching of that. There's other companies in Saudi which have been and have had this issue, but I'm not going to say which ones. However, it does go on, and it goes on more frequently than people in fact realise. Obviously here, again, it's an assessment. It streamlines that. It in fact notifies the regulator and the stakeholder. Quite a few organisations give a specific time frame, such as 72 hours. Some are shorter than that in terms of the banking sector. It's a lot shorter than that because you have to report that breach, obviously, to the regulator. And with the financial sector, you've got SAMA, NCA, and SEDAIA to inform. It isn't just one of them, it's all of them. And it's a nightmare because you've got 3 regulators who will come down on you like a ton of bricks in terms of this particular one. And they will not accept any excuses whatsoever. And they are very strict on this. In terms of what to include in a notification, the worst thing you can do is to produce a notification which in fact gets people's minds excited and then like panic. It has to be very well thought out before you actually describe the notification. You have to give the description, the incident, and like how and when it occurred, and when the organisation became, in fact, aware of it. I have seen a couple of examples where nothing has been said, and people talk, say, somebody's got hold of my information. Where did it come from? Oh, it came from company X. Did it? People talk. So be as quick as possible, be transparent on this. Explain what the data was affected and the data subjects, the approximate number of individuals, and the types and the nature of the data that was involved, the risks and the consequences, a major area. What are those risks and the consequences for those individuals affected? This one is overlooked quite a lot of the time, but it's one of the main areas. What's your mitigation? What's the organisation going to do to prevent this and reduce the impact? And also importantly, is what contact information? Who do they contact? Not some generic email address that I have lost my information.com. No, they want to get you in terms of like a name and a phone number. So who to notify? Obviously, the individuals concerned. The regulatory authorities, SEDAIA, absolutely, SAMA, NCA, and any other parties as well who are involved in terms of law enforcement, if it's quite sensitive, the data. If you've experienced this breach, which many people have, you assess the situation. You then determine those legal obligations, because this can be very severe indeed if this goes wrong. You notify those authorities, as I've said, SEDAIA, SAMA, or whoever's in the territory in terms of yourselves. You inform the affected individuals. And then finally, you implement those remedial, in fact, measures. And as long as you're doing all of that and you're transparent, then the regulator will say, okay, you've done like your due diligence. Show me where you are in terms of the data breach management. And Samia will explain now more eloquently in terms of how this is in terms of the Ardent platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's a post data breach management. Again, single pane of glass for whatever data privacy and compliance team need to have in one kind of single platform. So the post data breach management comes into picture when there is actually breach, right? Or breach or close to the potential breach which actually happens. So somebody within the organization or maybe from the partner ecosystem or something equivalent who will actually submit the request. So where privacy team, right, will go through the basically the whole question, or rather the qualification criteria for incident, what are the legal implication of each and every what standards, what regulations that is subject to depending on the region. So when data breach happens, you don't want to basically start preparing for that kind of stuff that done, right? You need to have this in advance, right? So this platform actually becomes, right? This particular module becomes your go-to place to basically have all those workflows ready. Uh, in case some data breach incident actually comes your way and you have to analyze and you have to do something uh, around that. So, couple of things there. First of all, it is tied back, which is absolutely important. So, one of the thing with data discovery and data bomb we are talked about earlier is um, when there is a data breach, right? Eventually, either your databases, servers, or whatever. But the key question to be answered that time is what is actually compromised, right? And discovery tool actually helps you. Okay, these are probably 22 servers where that particular breach was actually concerned with overall, and these 22 servers had this much of data, how many personal records, how many basically business confidential information and all that. You can pull all that off into it overall. So that's also important. How do you do the impact analysis? So it walks you through a various basically the processes, what you need to do if data breach occurs. Other part is you also need to have notices, right? That what kind of data was breached, whom database, because I think most of the data breach, and last time, which one was a big, I think Starwood Marriott was the big breach. They end up over reporting, I would say, how much millions of customers, right? Overall, because you just don't have idea, right? What was touched, not having right inventory. And I think it was almost like $1 billion in basically loss, right? Overall, just because you did not have that ready, right? I remember that story was, it's been a while, but that. So absolutely important what kind of notices will go, and you can actually prepare for this depending on what jurisdiction you are in, what regulation applies to you overall, who should be reporting what, how regulators need to be informed. And it gives you the cover and basically a preparation for your entire, along with all the tech involved, which is what exactly is basically compromised or what is the exposure of your data, right? Whether it's server, databases, personal records, non-personal records, confidential drawings or whatever, right? Data of national interest and so forth. Yeah, and then you can integrate that with your uh, email systems or your marketing systems. How do you basically distribute those notification to affected users? And all the dashboarding you can see here in the picture, what is done, what is not done, kind of. But yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Samir. Very informative as always. And there we are.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think we do have one question there in the Q&A section.
Yeah. Can you please elaborate a bit more about Ardent's implementation in the banking sector and how would your solution help in the Middle East, providing
Yeah.
customized solutions?
Yeah.
Well, can I answer part from a CISO data
Yeah,
management?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, in terms of that particular question, I'll put my CISO hat on. It will, in terms of how will it help the Middle East, well, particularly, and again, I know it's the temperature, I'll pick Saudi really because that's where we are in Saudi. But it's because of the frameworks here, and it is mandated. The Saudi government and Sadaya have released this framework, and there are no exceptions. There are none. If you come under that remit, under their regulation, you have to do it. So therefore, it would help and enormously because it would then streamline all those areas that we've said, your data mapping, your data minimization, etc. So it would be extremely helpful, advantageous to have this. And also in terms of the Ardent platform, it is customizable to the nth degree in terms of your organization. It isn't like hard coded. I've got my application developer hat on there. It isn't a hard coded solution. So from that perspective, it's certainly in spades, it would add considerable, in fact, value. I shall send the floor back to Samir in terms of the banking sector and to add any more to that. Sorry for interrupting. I just apologize.
Yeah. So I earlier basically mentioned, and thank you, Sakshi, for that question. So absolutely, the localization is important. Whether you talk about the languages in consent, you talk about the identifiers in data discovery, we cover it all, right? Which is the region overall. If you're talking about the personal data identifiers, you're talking about Saudi national IDs, Qatar national ID, or whatever. So we cover it all. So super local, and I already mentioned, right? It can be basically deployed on-prem completely because we do understand the sectors like bank, they have their own large data centers and are subject to the central banking regulations there for data localization. So we not only customize, right? Customization is one part, completely customized to your local needs, but also basically available in the delivery mechanism, which is aligned with your compliance norms, right? Overall. So yeah, so I hope that answers. Yeah. Uh, yeah, Samreen, we do want to do the announcement, right? Overall, so the people who actually signed up for the webinar, we do have a full integration for privacy awareness course. So if you actually sign up for this webinar, you will get a link where you can actually download the awareness course for privacy, which you can actually use within your organization. Because as I said, right, privacy is still basically underrated or pretty unknown concept in many organizations. So if you have signed up, you will get a link to actually sign up for platform. You just need to do some sign up, but what you will get is within the platform, you will get the awareness course, and at the end of the course you will also get the certification of it. But that also gives you a glimpse into some of the stuff overall. But we are here to actually do, if you want to do evaluations, if you want to know basically more about solutions, we are here to help.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you so much, Samir. And thank you so much, Sakshi, for all the questions. Team, we would like to also let you know that a follow-up email will be sent with all our details who are the speakers over here. That would be me, Samir, and Ashley. Feel free to reach us out if you want a more detailed or in-depth deep dive technical session or understand certain use cases more. We are here to help you out. We are here to support. We'll make ourselves available as per your timeline. But also one more thing that I would request, as soon as you complete your course and you have your certificate, I would request you to kindly post it on your LinkedIn and tag Ardent and CyberKnight so that we can get your certificate to the maximum reach and eventually, get that notified that you are a data privacy awareness champ. That's it. It's a great pleasure to have you all. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for
Take care.
having wonderful discussion. Thank you, Ashley and Samreen.
Thank you
Was
very
great.
much.
Anytime.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure is all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.